So let's have a chat, shall we? Let's have a little occult chat. This is your host, The Occult View. There's a lot of things going on in the world right now, and it's almost like people can't really speak on it because they'll lose their job, people will attack them, and all sorts of other things that take place in this dystopian, intolerant, controlled world that we live in. And I'm finding more and more that people are really losing their grip on reality and they are descending more and more into insanity. Here's what I'm talking about, especially religious people. Because I think what's happening is because of the spiritual awakening that is taking place, a lot of religious people are waking up to a nightmare that they really don't have anything to hold on to because what they believed in was only supposed to be a tool to get them to the next spiritual level. It was supposed to be not a lifestyle, not a way of life, but a tool. Religion to me warmed me up for other things. But people have turned it into a lifestyle and they've turned it into a bullying tactic and they've turned it into an enslavement contract, basically. And because we're going through this spiritual shift right now, unfortunately, a lot of people are losing their minds because they're realizing that religion is not helping them. They won't say it to you, they won't admit it because a lot of them are trapped in an enslavement contract called cognitive dissonance and maybe a little narcissism. They won't admit that they have failed in that endeavor. And it's proven more and more every day that they have failed in that endeavor. So they descend into delusions, madness, and insanity. And when they cannot stand on firm ground, when they begin to sink in their quicksand of their own thinking, they begin to grab other people to try to take you down with them. Jim Jones did the same exact thing. The cult leader, that's what he did. He watched as his empire began to crumble around him. He was not in the best health, and he wanted to take as many people with him as he possibly could. And in his case, he unalived those people, forced unalive those people with cyanide and of shit of that nature. Yesterday I did an Instacart order. And normally when I do Instacart orders, I just tell them to leave it at my door and go on about their business. Because I really don't like interacting with, you know, those different types of personalities. Sometimes if it's a female, particularly a black female, I'll interact with them because black women don't tend to give me any problems. But those black men, I don't mean no motherfucking harm. I don't like talking to them. I don't. Keeping it 100. So it was a black man. I did a small Instacart order. I wanted a few things. What it wasn't groceries what I needed. It was other things that I needed for the house. So I did a small Instacart order. And it was a black guy that delivered my stuff. I cringe every time I see a black guy shopping for me. I do. Because they're not good at customer service. They're really not good at that. I'm sorry. You're not. You may be good at a trillion other things, but customer service, black men are not good at that. So once the individual dropped off my groceries, I opened up the door to collect my stuff. He doubles back. I said thank you to him. See, this is how I know people, they examine your voice, they examine your frequency. I'm polite to everyone until you give me a reason not to be. Now, just to let you know, he didn't say anything to me offensive, although it can be subjective. You can subjectify this. But he doubled back and started talking about Revelations and the book of Revelations and not trusting anything pharmaceutical and the mark of the beast and I don't trust this and I don't. I'm like, and I'm thinking, you know what? The universe said, be silent, be still, peace be still, be silent. That's not a Christian thing. That's a universal concept. And I didn't say anything. I just listened to him and looked at him because I already knew what he was talking was bullshit. He was talking about the mark of the beast and talking about revelations. And I'm like, why is this motherfucker talking to me about revelations? I was raised Methodist. I know all about revelations. I've studied revelations. I've studied the Antichrist ad nauseum. Even after I wasn't a Christian, I studied to have an understanding of the psychosis that we are seeing now in this world. So he left. I just let him ramble. I didn't say nothing else to him because you can't argue with insanity. You can't argue with a person who is basically on the edge or crazy or losing their mind or descending into madness. Because why did he feel as though he had to tell me about not trusting pharmaceuticals or not trusting this and that and the mark of the beast and what did they do and it's like he's regurgitating information that he heard from other people, and oftentimes black men, y'all do that shit because you've become followers. You're no longer trendsetters. You've become followers of anything and every fucking thing. If he was talking from a place of authenticity and just trying to have a conversation, that would be different. But he came off dictating that what he was thinking was right. He doesn't trust this. He don't trust that. Why the fuck are you worried about what somebody else does with their body? See, this is where things get a little interesting. You're talking about people shouldn't trust pharmaceuticals, and there are people who make channels talking about you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. To me, that's more control too. Because as an individual human being, I should be able to make the choice on what I want to do. See, you have people over here talking about you shouldn't do this because it's going to hurt you. Then you have the people over here telling you, oh, you're going to do this because I say so, because I'm the government and I can make you do whatever I want you to do. There's no difference between the two. Both of them are trying to enforce something on you. It's just one of them are doing it in the name of the Lord and in the name of religion, in the name of the Lord. First of all, let's get a few motherfucking things straight about the Antichrist. There have been many figures, there have been many um, times throughout histories and other civilizations where there have been declines in civilization. Antichrist is really not what people think. You have to really you have to really understand it on a spiritual and a symbolic level. It has nothing to do with the fairy tale bullshit that they print in the Bible. That was written by men. Men are corrupt by nature. Men are corrupt, and they're only going to give you what they want you to have. They're only going to give you a piece of information. What the Antichrist really represents is a decline in civilization. That is what it represents. It does not represent one person taking power, and even if that did happen, it would be backed up by something else that the public doesn't know about. See, Christians and religious people, their minds are limited. And that is why they have such a hard time maneuvering in this world sometimes. Because they took away the mysticism and the magic and the metaphysics of Christianity, which Christianity was a spiritual metaphysical practice to help you understand life, death, and everything in between. They took that away and they made it into a materialistic, man worshiping religion. Do you understand that throughout the entire world, most religions they worship men, with the exception possibly of the Catholic Church, where they worship Virgin Mary, but even that is ambiguous at best, because you still have to worship a man or male deity that is supposed to be over Mary. Does that make anyone suspicious? And every male deity has the same traits. He's jealous, he's evil. I'm calling him evil. Jealousy, evil, nastiness. If you don't do what I tell you to do. And then they have these little minions, like the one that delivered my groceries, talking about Revelations. Revelations is describing a decline in civilization. It is not describing the physical end of the world. And see, that's another thing. A lot of these people have mental illness. They are depressed and unhappy with their lives because they're clinging on to an old system that simply just does not work anymore. Those old religions don't work anymore. They were supposed to be used in a certain way. But men got involved and said, hey, listen, we can make a killing off of this motherfucker. Not only can we make a lot of money, we can absorb people's energies and frequencies and vibrations and use it as our own. We can wield that type of power as our own. Same thing happened in Atlantis. Same thing happened in Lemuria and other civilizations time and time again when there was a decline. In Atlantis, the same thing happened. The same exact thing happened in Atlantis when there was a decline in civilization. From what I've researched, they started controlling the population instead of serving the population as what the government is supposed to be about. It's supposed to be about serving the people, not controlling and manipulating and driving the people into abject poverty. But in Atlantis, they started doing the same thing, surveilling, us, not survey, well, setting up surveillance of their citizens, trying to control their citizens, telling their citizens, well, if you don't believe in this, then, you're not part of our community. And if you don't do this, you're not part of society. Since when did the government start controlling people in this way? That's just like the reaction that I am seeing from people across the spectrum in response to the tragic unaliving of Charlie Kirk. Now, I understand people are very upset. I understand that people are that they liked him or whatever the case may be. They liked his philosophies. I get it. I get what happened to him was a horrible, hideous, heinous act. I agree. But you all are taking it a bit too fucking far. Number one, why the fuck are white people blaming black people for what happened to him? And why are people blaming everyone for what happened to him? The last time I checked, and I'm gonna take the middle shit and just sweep that, just put the middle shit to the side. But the last time I checked, it was one person that did that to him. Now I understand the theories and all that. I get it. But let's come on down. We need to come on down to earth for a moment. One person. And do you know what's interesting? Instead of these people, and I'm talking about you white folks, instead of you blaming that white boy for being a terrorist and a heinous individual, you're tiptoeing around everything just so you can blame society at large for what one individual did. He made that decision to do that to Charlie Kirk. And that is who your focus should be on. Your focus should be on people like him, not black people, not Latino people. It should be on him. Why are you all trying to make everyone pay for what happened to Charlie Kirk? I didn't hate Charlie Kirk. I didn't align with some of his values, but I didn't hate Charlie Kirk. I would have been one of the gay people that would have been willing to sit down and have a conversation with him. I'll talk to anyone as long as it's respectful. But then we have to understand some things. And I want to educate a lot of you folks out there. And this ain't no bashing white people, on an individual level. I'm talking about the white people that I see in social media that are politicizing and they are exploiting Charlie Kirk's death and his the tragedy of his death. You have white men online hollering and screaming and crying, and you're acting like he's Christ. That's idolatry worship. And then the people that are participating in this, I'm reading the comments, they're Christians. You're not supposed to participate as a Christian in idolatry worship, or have you all forgotten that? See, that's what I'm saying. You all are up under the idolatry effect. Idol worship. Charlie Kirk was a human being. You're not supposed to act like this towards him. You're acting like he's a deity. And as a Christian, you're not supposed to do that. But let's have a conversation. Let's have a real, conversation about what's really going on in this world. People are getting fired because they're saying that they didn't really align with Charlie Kirk's views, or they're not, sorry about what happened to him. How can someone get fired because they say, hey, listen, I don't care about what happened to him? How is that a fireable offense? And yeah, I know fireable may not be a word, but I'm using it as one. How is that an offense to terminate someone from their job? I thought we had freedom of speech. But that's right, freedom of speech is not without consequence. But there's no threat to civilization saying, hey, listen, I don't really care what happens. You know, there's no threat to civilization saying something like that. According to me, it's not. And then they want to drag the LGBT community into this mess because the individual who shot Charlie Kirk is obviously part of the LGBT community. Let me tell you, motherfuckers, one thing. Let me tell you something. You have to understand there's a great separation taking place. And how can I put this? The LGBT community, as we see it today, is not the real LGBT community. Because spiritual gay people, such as myself, we have a different understanding. See, that Tyler Robinson person, and I'm trying to use my words carefully, he was a radical individual that was probably part of some type of subculture cult that radicalized him to do what he did. Because from what I understand, he was in a relationship with a transgender or transvestite or something like that person. And now that is going to be the running theme that not only was he this, but he was also part of the LGBT community. Well, let me explain something to you. Let me explain something to you. There are two fractions of the LGBT community. Okay? And I'm not even going to, I'm going to take the LGBT part out of it. I want to take that out of it. And then I'm going to get back to what I was originally talking about. Because, see, this is all part of the decline in civilization. When everything declines in civilization, everything declines. That is the Antichrist. Antichrist means anti-spirit, anti-divine, anti-divine spirit. That is what it means. It has nothing to do with religion. It has nothing to do with Jesus. It's a representation of the moral and the spiritual decline, not Christianity, but spiritual decline. Christianity is up under religion now. This is about the moral and the spiritual decline of civilization. That is the Antichrist. Not no motherfucking mark of the beast and all that other bullshit that you all try to use to keep people in fear and in bondage so you can bring that about. There are two fractions of the LGBT community or the gay community. There's the fraction where you have spiritual gay people, where we are more underground, underworld, subculture type, right? And we don't like being involved in any of this political stuff. Then you have the gay political gay people, the gay political types who are pushing legislation and political change for gay people. The problem is this: people like me who are gay, we are in a subculture, in an underground, underworld subculture. And we don't want exposure. We want to be left alone to do what we do with other adults, do our spiritual work, and do what we do. And everything for us is not about marriage, it's not about sexualization. For us, it's more about spiritual awakening. And I've talked about this before, but I feel like I need to talk about it again. Now that they have identified the fact that Tyler Robinson was gay. Because now they're going to try to say, oh, well, the LGBT. No, no. Tyler Robinson was part of the gay political movement. That's an underground world in and of itself as well. But we are not part of that because spiritual gay people, we're not trying to enforce anything on anyone. It is you all that try to enforce things on us. And then when you do it to us, see, when you enforce things on the political gay types, they'll try to get more legislation, but they oftentimes don't win in that arena. But when you try to force things on us, we're going to win because we have the spirit backing us up. I don't give a fuck what Leviticus says. Fuck your Leviticus. Because when you really break down Leviticus to the nitty gritty, it's only saying if a man lies down with another man. So what they're saying, that's a detestable act. What they're really saying is all you got to do is put on a dress child, put on some lipstick, and turn yourself into a woman, and then that's okay. Because that's what they did during the Roman times, during the Romanesque types of times. Okay? So anyway, and you can take it how the fuck you want. But ultimately, it is not my goal to enforce anything. Somebody don't like me because I'm gay, that's fine. Long as you don't try no stupid shit. Because there will be more than hell to pay. That's not a threat, that's a promise. See, I'm not part of those political movements. The LGBT community has become a political movement. And that portion of it has created a psychosis in people like a Tyler Robinson. And we have to understand the distinction. There are different levels of gay people in this world. I just explained two. We, talking about people, gay people like me, we are more focused on inner spiritual growth, inner light, spiritual awakening, changing realities, manipulating. That's what we're into. Helping the world to keep balance. People ask me all the time, how come you didn't have any children? You know why I didn't have any children? And it's nothing against anybody else who didn't have any children, because that wasn't in the cards for me. I didn't want to bring children into this dysfunctional family that I live in, number one. And I didn't want to bring children into this dysfunctional world because from what I foresaw, I would be in jail if somebody did something to my child. The things that parents have to go through now, I could not deal with that. I didn't have the mental, not capacity, but I didn't have the mental to deal with everything that parents go through because I deal with enough on my own. So I'm keeping a certain balance in the universe. That is what we're focused on over here as gay people. But every group has their own fraction of lunacy. And Tyler Robinson comes from that fraction of lunacy that is radical. This is not a left or right issue. It's a spiritual issue. It's a sign of spiritual decline where a person can't even express their views because they may be unalived. Why do you think I don't show myself on camera? It's a safety issue. I'm not on here bullying people or harassing people. I think Christians have a right to practice whatever they want to practice as long as they're not bothering me. But see, that's the problem. Like that fool that delivered my groceries today, not groceries, not today, but yesterday. Like that fool that delivered I didn't order groceries, but the stuff that I ordered, that idiot, he's a problem. That's a problem. You don't know me. You don't know me to come at me about religion. You should not assume that everyone is a Christian. You should not assume that everyone's going to think like you. So, no, the Antichrist is a symbol to describe the decline and the end of civilization and the birth of a new civilization, the birth of a new earth, the birth of a new awakening. That is what it's about. It is describing how people will become anti-spirit. Religion is not spirit. Religion is carnal. Religion is anything that's created by man is carnal. The spirit has no definition. You can't explain the spirit. If it's something that you can explain, then it's not the spirit. Now, the spirit will give you insight if it so chooses to, which is the universe or whatever you want to call it, or God. But God is not what most people think. It's not even called God. It's not even called the source. It's just, it just is. That's what you call it. It just is. And there's nothing you can do to explain it. It always has been and it always will be. We are fractions of the just is. And we're not doing a good job, especially with this planet. And I know I'm raising my voice, but I'm just passionate. So you all understand. I'm not angry, just passionate. Well, maybe a little angry because I'm tired of religious people throwing out their biblical verses, telling people to look at Revelations. I don't need to read a motherfucking thing in Revelations. We're living in Revelations, if that's what you want me to say. The government is corrupt. The people are corrupt. The systems are corrupt. And there is a decline in everything. You can't even find a good sex partner anymore. It's even a decline in that. It's that damn bad. Everyone is up under ritual. Everyone is in a psychosis, not me. Everyone is on some weird shit. And it doesn't matter what your race is, black, white, Indian, you're all up under this. You all want to point at black people, then everybody wants to point at white people. Then you want to point, no, it's everyone. It doesn't matter what you believe. There are fractions of lunacy in Buddhism as well, in Hinduism as well, because that's a religion. And it's not in its true form the way that it was. And I don't give a fuck what none of you motherfuckers say about it. Nothing is in its true form. So when there are things that are not in their true form, you have to go back to the just is, which is what you call the source. And you have to readjust your thinking. You have to readjust everything that you may have experienced. Doesn't mean you like it, but you have to start looking at it from a different perspective. And what I have done is I said, you know what? I came into this world to learn lessons. This is why I am here. This is what I am here to do. I am here to learn lessons. And some of the lessons spiritually, they have not been easy. I can still do my spell work. I do my spell work, but I do my spell work differently than most people do. I do it within my own vibration and frequency. I do my spell work with my mind and my mouth and with my frequency and my vibration. Yeah, I do the candles and all that stuff sometimes, but I have not had a need to really do that in a long time because I've elevated to another vibration. Doesn't mean that it doesn't have that it's not useful for people that still do that. Of course it's useful. But spirit has me in a different on a different path, if that makes sense. We're all on our own individual path. And that is the problem that people don't understand. And people, especially religious people, they try to violate that. That man that delivered my stuff from Instacart, to me, that was a violation. How do you even know if I read the Bible? What makes you think that I read the Bible? Why would he even bring up Revelations? I'm going to tell you why he brought it up. Because he's afraid. He's afraid of the mark of the beast. The mark of the beast symbolically represents forcing you to do things that you don't want to do, forcing you to be in religions that you don't want to be in. The mark of the beast represents fear, it represents panic, it represents chaos, it represents enslavement. It's not something literal. It represents spiritual void. And that's what you all are living in now. You don't need a one world leader to what's the word to descend you into madness. You've done it yourself. You attack people who don't believe the same things that you do. You worship idols like Donald Trump, Elon Musk. You worship actors. You worship all of these different people. But you have ignored your spirit. And you're waking up to a nightmare now. And now you're trying to run back to religion. But that program has ended. That has ended. It has no use anymore. Spirituality is different than religion. See, there's a difference in spirituality that is based in Christianity versus just Christianity, which is a religious cult that tries to force you to worship a man named Jesus Christ. I look at Pop the Balloon all the time. And you know why the majority of those black people and people are single on those shows? It's because of their religion. Religion limits people, but that's on you. If that's how you want to live, that's fine. But what you will not do is try to infringe on my spiritual path. No, you will not do that. The Antichrist represents the decline of civilization and the decline of divine spirituality. Everything is a textbook, just like a lot of you are textbook maniacs. I'm not talking about the people that watch me that genuinely follow me, not you. I'm talking about the person who delivered my merchandise yesterday. That's a textbook religious maniac. And those types of people usually end up in cults. They're already in one. They worship the preacher. They don't follow what they call the word. They worship the preacher. And they're out here like minions trying to bully and fearmonger people into their religion. So let's say a world leader does take power and he becomes the infamous Antichrist. What the fuck you motherfuckers gonna do? When they tell you that you can't eat, buy, sell, do what you want to do to live, when they tell most of you motherfuckers that, including you Christians, you gonna run right to those beast centers and get that motherfucking mark. I'm talking about hypothetically. But the witches and the warlocks, we're gonna fight against that. We're gonna fight against it. But when you really interpret it the right way, they're talking about the decline of civilization and how the government wants to control everybody. The government doesn't have to give you a mark to control you. You're already controlled. Look at how people are going crazy over Charlie Kirk's death. Another psyop effect. And I'm not just talking about the white people going crazy over his death. I'm talking about the black people who are responding as well with he got what he did and all that. I know everybody's entitled to their opinions, and I'm not judging anybody's opinions or thoughts. But how are you celebrating his death? How is that going to help you spiritually? That's my question. How are you celebrating his death? How is that going to take you to the next level spiritually? How is that going to put more money in your pocket? We can all speak on it and say, hey, listen, I ain't like him. And X, Y, and Z is why X, Y, and Z happens. We can all say that. It's nothing wrong with that. But it's these people who turn everything into a ritual. Charlie Kirk's death is just another sign, as you Christians call it, of the Antichrist. It's a sign of the decline in civilization. And so is the person that killed him. He is also part of the sign of the decline in civilization. You can't have thoughts, you can't have opinions now, because if you do, people may want to unalive you. But the government has always done stuff like that, haven't they? Isn't that why they got rid of Marilyn Monroe? Because she knew too much? Isn't that why they got rid of Dorothy Kilgallen, the columnist that used to be on that show, What's My Line? Isn't that why they got rid of JFK? They all of them died interconnected. Dorothy Dandridge, her death was mysterious too. Are we really ever going to find out what really happened to Anne Heche and why she jumped out of that body bag? See, nobody's asking these questions. That the real reason that Anne Heche allegedly ended up dead was because she was getting ready to write a book exposing the fuck out of a lot of people in Hollywood, including P. Diddy. I liked Anne Heche. I liked her. I liked her a lot. They have the dumb public thinking that this is a left or right issue when it's not. It's a spiritual issue. And I'm not knocking, Christians. Not, no, this is not about knocking Christians. What it's about exposing and speaking on radicalism. And there's radicalism in every fraction of life. In every religion, there's radicalism. but it's also about interpreting spiritual matters in the appropriate way. There is no one world leader that's going to come and control everybody. And even if that does happen, excuse me, what the fuck are you going to do about it? Because you only have a piece of the information. You're only given bits and pieces of information. You're not given the whole story. Just like in Sleeping Beauty, we thought Maleficent was the villain. But when you got the backstory, you found out that Maleficent was really not the villain. The villain was the motherfucking king, King Stefan. You know, they intertwined the occult and real life events into these movies sometimes, a lot of times. You know, I went back and just veering off for a moment, but in the same arena. And I know a lot of people may not know who this is, but that's just like what happened to Doris Duke, the philanthropist. You know, her father, James Buchanan Duke, he owned, I think he owned a large tobacco firm or company or whatever. The Duke family, they're immersed in philanthropy throughout US history. But it goes back to Doris Duke. She died in 1993 under some mysterious circumstances. And her butler, Bernard Lafferty, I believe that's his name, he maneuvered, he manipulated his way into her life, became the executor of the Duke estate, even though he died not long after she did. And allegedly, that woman lived in horror the remaining years of her life bedridden, being drugged and overly drugged by the doctors that were working with Bernard Lafferty so they could steal Doris Duke's money. And then I read, I don't know if it's true or not, that the courts decided that there was no justifiable cause. So the doctor that was over medicating her purposely with morphine, he got off. And we don't have any questions. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because when I look at the world now, it mimics what even Doris Duke went through. There is no accountability for anything. And the common denominator is men. Men. Doris Duke surrounded herself with the wrong men. That's the point that I'm making. So can't no motherfucking man come and tell me a motherfucking thing about shit spiritually. And depending on the woman, that's a wild card too. Because if it's connected to low vibrating, fear-based religions, I have rose above that. I'm not in that vibration anymore, and I'm not in that world. Even my ceiling fan agrees. It's clicking. I remember years ago when I used to look at those Christian shows, Jack Vanapee and stuff when I was a teenager, he was talking about the Antichrist back then. Oh, he's coming, oh, this, oh. That was back in the early, mid-90s. And ain't no Antichrist showed up yet. That's because what you're thinking is going to show up, it has showed up, but it didn't show up in the way that they told you. They're driving you insane. They're driving white people insane. They're driving black people insane. They're driving people insane across the board. White people, they are driving you into madness. They are forcing you to descend into madness. That is what they're doing. Black people, they're doing the same thing to you. Latino people, the same thing. Indian people, same thing. They are causing a worldwide dissension into madness. so they can control you. That's the Antichrist. Not no one person. It's getting you to separate from spirit and to follow false idols and false gods. So I don't want to hear no motherfucking shit about studying some revelations. I understand revelations. Do you? And my interpretation upon what the Spirit, gracefully bestows upon me. And I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about spirit. I'm talking about the occult and understanding that the Bible is a book of occultism. And you have to understand it and understand what it really means. And it's a lot of negativity in the Bible. And you have to understand that. So I don't need to study no motherfucking revelations. On a lighter note, you don't have to be stuck in a low vibrating, fear mongering, fear based reality. You don't have to be stuck in that. And that is really the true goal of these, I'm going to call these, not entity vampire, but these low vibrating people. Remember what I told you in the beginning? They want people to keep them company in their own private hells. And I have elevated to another level. I can feel it, I know it, and I see it. The first sign I started, let me tell you something. I started realizing and recognizing, and it's going to continue. But I started recognizing maybe around 2022-ish that I had, maybe 2021, 2022, that I had vibrated or rose in my frequency or into a new kind of reality. You know what I'm saying? Not saying that I wasn't around the same people, but something happened inside of me. See, when you vibrate on a higher frequency, it's not about some dramatic change. You know what I mean? It's about just gradual changes that happen within you. One of the first signs for me, I started seeing birds that I had never seen before. And I started seeing them in frequency, meaning I started seeing them a lot. That's what I mean when I say in frequency. I started seeing them a lot. I started seeing bluebirds, yellow birds, red birds, and this is where I used to live at. I started seeing those different colors of birds. And when I would try to explain to people what I was saying, oh, that they probably just flew out of somebody's cage. And I would look, I'm like, bitch, are you fucking crazy? What the fuck do you mean? But then Spirit said, Seer, you can't expect people to see what you see because you're on a whole different vibration now. So I started realizing a few years ago that I was going into a higher frequency and vibration. And it started for me a few years ago. That is why, you know, things and people don't have as much effect on me as they used to. And that is why I cannot be around negativity. So if you feel like in your own being, not because I say it, not because somebody else says it, but if you feel within your own being that you are starting to elevate to a higher state of consciousness, then one of the things you're going to notice is that you don't want to be around no negativity. You don't want to be around no toxicity. And I don't care who it's coming from. You're not going to want to participate and be around that. That's going to become like, like, how can I put it? It's going to become like a foreign language to you, conflict and all of those things. It doesn't mean that you're not going to have challenges. It doesn't mean that. It just simply means that you're going to be a little bit more, you're going to heal a little bit quicker from those challenges. You know what I'm saying? So you don't have to live in those lower vibrating frequencies. And right now, we live in a world that is trying to force that upon us through religion, through all of these idols like the Andrew Tates and the Charlie Kirks and the Donald Trumps and all of these male idols. But you notice one common denominator out of all of this. You notice there are no females, not even white female idols that you can call upon because they only put spotlight on the males. And Andrew Tate is racially ambiguous because I believe he's biracial. He claims that his father is black, but I question that. I really think he's Arabic or Middle Eastern. That's why he went back to I'm sorry, that's why he went to being Islam. And there's nothing wrong with Arabic or Middle Eastern men. I think y'all are sexy too. So ain't nothing wrong with that. I've had a couple of y'all. So don't take offense to that, child, okay? Yeah, y'all mess around too on the low low. Especially y'all Middle Eastern doctors. I had one a few times. He was fine as hell too. He looked like a model. Anyway, he moved back to the UK years ago. But anyway, um, that's really all I had to say. Um, that's it. I mean, I think I said enough, but just don't be bamboozled by this bullshit that's going on. Don't be bamboozled by this. They're trying to lock you down into fear. They're trying to lock you down into low vibrating realities. And it has worked for so many people. For so many people. Anyway, that's all I want to say. Thanks.